Hello, biology buddies. I hope you, your friends, and your family are all safe and well. This is lesson number 1 on plant hormones from the unit B5, homeostasis and response, and the title of this lesson is Auxins. This is going to be one of 3 lessons on plant hormones. We're going to look at some different plant hormones, what they do, how they can be used commercially, and then one of the required practicals. This is a separate biology only topic, so if you're doing combined science, by all means listen along, but this won't be on your exam or on your tests. Let's get started and see what we're going to do. So for the outcomes today, we're going to recall what a tropism is and give some examples. We're going to describe where auxins are produced and their movement in shoots and roots. We're going to explain how auxins are involved in phototropism and geotropism. So those are our tropisms where we're going to give our examples. And last but not least, we're going to explain how phototropism benefits the plant. A little bit of spoiler alert here. This is going to be looking back to unit B4 and photosynthesis. So we're going to have to take our knowledge of photosynthesis, the products of photosynthesis, how photosynthesis happens, and link that to this thing called phototropism. Tropisms are plant behaviors that involve turning in response to a stimulus. A lot of you are probably thinking plant behavior. That's really weird. What are you talking about, plant behavior? A behavior in this term is the collection of responses to stimuli. So if something reacts to a stimulus, that is considered a behavior. And plants absolutely react to stimuli. They can move. They can move by turning their leaves. They can turn their flowers. They can grow towards or away from things. So have a quick think, what kinds of stimuli or changes in the environment are important to plants? What are things that they might want to grow towards or away from? Have a quick think, maybe write some ideas down. Some of you have probably come up with some, so there's some obvious ones: light, water, and then a less obvious one is gravity. Okay. Tropisms, a lot of people are like, oh, plant behavior, that's kind of boring, it's not really interesting. But actually it allows you to investigate and question some stuff that we probably don't normally think about, but it is pretty exciting and wild. So question number 1, why do roots grow down? Right? We know that they grow down because they want to get nitrates and other mineral ions from the soil, they want to get water, but what is it in the root that makes it grow down? Why don't roots just randomly grow straight up into the sky? Why do shoots grow up? Why doesn't a tree try and grow leaves underground? How does that happen? The tree doesn't have eyes, it doesn't have anything like that. So how does that happen? If we think about planting a seed and then the seed growing, how does the seedling, so the initial shoot and root that come out of the seed, how does the shoot of the seedling know to grow up? There's no light there, it's underground. How does it know what direction to go? It's weird. These are the sorts of questions that we can ask in science and do some experiments to uncover. And for us, it's going to come down to auxins. So there's 2 tropisms that you need to know. Phototropism, which is a plant growing in response to light. And obviously we know already that photo is reference to light. Photosynthesis, building using light. Photograph, making a picture using light. Phototropism, a behavior, a turning behavior in response to light. The other one is geotropism. Geotropism you'll often see referred to as gravitropism. If you put either one on the test or the exam, you'll get full marks, so don't worry about that. And that is a plant growing in response to gravity. Auxins are the most important plant hormone that we're going to be talking about. If on a test or an exam you have a question about a plant hormone and you have absolutely no idea what hormone it could possibly be, just write the word auxin. It's much more likely that it'll be auxin than one of the other plant hormones. Auxins are super important, and it's most of the AQA GCSE spec is about auxins. So both geotropism and phototropism are controlled by this hormone called auxin. And auxin is produced in the shoot tip and the root tip, and then moves in response to light and gravity. What they do is they influence cell elongation, and cell elongation is exactly what it seems. If I have a shoot tip here, beautiful drawing, and then I apply some auxins and I say that it's going to elongate. It literally just gets longer. So the cells are physically getting longer. If you write auxin leads to growth, you're not wrong because it is growing because the cells are elongating, but it's not through cell division. It's from the cells actually physically getting longer. So we want to use the words cell elongation. Okay? Auxins in the shoot and in the root behave in almost exactly opposite ways. So we're going to start with auxins in the shoot, but remember auxins in the root are going to do the opposite. So in the shoot, auxins are going to move away from light. We say that there's negative movement. It's away from the light. And the auxins stimulate cell elongation in the shoot. They're going to inhibit it. They're going to prevent it from happening in the root. If we have, let's draw a lovely picture here. This is a lamp, obviously, but I'll write the word lamp just in case we're not sure. And I'm going to have my shoot down here. If we have the lamp directly above the shoot, so there's the light coming down, my auxins I'm going to draw as little red spots. My auxins are going to move away from the light down the chute, but because the light is directly overhead, the auxins aren't going to accumulate on one side or the other side. We're going to have an equal distribution. There's going to be an even spread of the auxins the whole way through. So that will look like this. My auxins have moved away. Now we know that auxins cause cell elongation, so that part of the cell is going to elongate, and I'm going to end up with, put my lamps back in, I'm going to end up with my shoot growing towards the light. So it's gone up towards the light. And the reason that it's done that is you had an equal distribution. So it was the same amount of auxin on both sides. And it's this bit here that's going to elongate that we put in the box. Okay. If the lamp is not directly overhead, if the lamp is to the side, so this time let's put a little table lamp, beautiful drawings here. I'm not going to have an equal distribution. Okay, so I start with all my auxins at the shoot tip. What's going to happen, they're going to move away from the light. So I'm going to end up with all of my auxins on the far side, the shaded side. You might have been able to hear my son yelling in the background there. We had to pause for a second as he ran by. So all the auxins are going to accumulate on the shaded side. That means that this side is going to elongate faster than the side with the light on it. What that means is the plant is actually going to curve. Because this side has elongated faster than the opposite side. So the plant ends up pointing towards the light. And if you have plants in your house, maybe sitting far away from a window, have a look at them, and what you might notice is the plants are growing towards the window or they're facing towards the window. And if you leave them for longer, they'll continue to do that. So that's in the shoot. In the shoot, the auxins move away from light. And they cause cell elongation. They stimulate cell elongation, would be the way to put it. Okay, what about in the root? In the root, there's not light, so it's underground. We're not going to be worried too much about its response to light. Instead, we're going to talk about its response to gravity. And they move with gravity, so they're going to move down to the bottom of wherever the structure is. In the root, it's the opposite. They inhibit cell elongation. So in the chute, it was stimulating cell elongation. In the root, it inhibits. And if we have the ground and the root going down, we have our auxins being made at the bottom, at the root tip. Because of gravity, they're going to get pulled down. They accumulate at the bottom, which means that the bit above it is going to elongate faster. So because that part elongates faster, and it's also an equal distribution, the root just grows down. So that's just growing down with gravity. Again, similar to the chute tip with the light on the side, we can say, well, what would happen if the root starts to grow sideways? You're going to get the auxin being produced at the root tip. Step 2, the auxin is going to go with gravity to the bottom. So you're going to end up with your auxin at the bottom of the root tip, which means that the side above is going to elongate faster. Remember, in the root tip, auxins inhibit cell elongation. So the side that doesn't have the auxins will elongate faster, and you end up with the root curving, probably not so dramatically, down, because this side here elongated faster than the underside. So auxins play a role in cell elongation in both the root tip and the chute tip. In the chute, they stimulate cell elongation, they move away from the light. In the root tip, they inhibit cell elongation and they move with gravity. Okay, let's try a 6-mark question. The shoot of a very young plant will still be underground where the seed was planted. There is no light there because it's underground. Explain how the shoot knows to grow up out of the soil and towards the light. Your answer should make reference to auxin distribution, cell elongation, the tropism involved, and the stimulus the plant is responding to. So there's 2 tropisms. I'm giving you a hint right here. It's not light, it's not phototropism, so how is a shoot going to respond to the other stimulus? I would recommend pausing the video and writing down some notes or writing down an answer, and then we will go through it together. So please have a go at it. Don't just look for the answer. You're going to learn a lot better if you actually try and answer the question yourself. There's your positive reinforcement. Okay, let's go through the answer. The shoot knows to grow up. We're talking about the shoot here. We're not talking about the root. There's no light, so the only other one that we've talked about is gravity. So it's going to be geotropism. That's part of our answer right there. We're responding to gravity, so it's going to be geotropism. How does the shoot know to grow up out of the soil? Well, we know that in the shoot, auxin causes cell elongation. And we know that because of gravity, if we have our little, here's the ground. Here's my little plant. There's the shoot. There's what's left of the seed. And there's we'll do the root in blue. So how does it know to grow up? You're going to get your auxins coming here, and they're going to move down with gravity. Can't really see that. They're going to move down with gravity, which is then going to lead to cell elongation. here, and the root's going, or the shoot, sorry, is going to grow up. So let's see that in words. There's no light, so the plant's responding to gravity. If you use the word gravity, that's 1 mark. This is an example of geotropism, 1 mark for saying that. If you said gravitropism instead, that's fine, that's a mark. The auxins are going to move down the chute with gravity, which is 1 mark. The auxins are going to stimulate, 1 mark, cell elongation, 2nd mark. So the chute is going to grow up away from the gravity. There's your 6th mark. Question's not going to get harder than that on an exam. Go off spec here for a second. A lot of times, again, people talk about the plant stuff. They don't find it particularly exciting. It is really important, especially when we think about things like humans traveling to Mars or other places. They're going to have to, most likely, bring plants with them, not just to eat when they get there, but for oxygen production. You can't just bring a whole bunch of oxygen with you. You want to limit the weight of your spacecraft or the mass of your spacecraft as much as possible. So having plants go with you is going to be super important. Food source and also oxygen source through photosynthesis. But as we've seen, plants grow roots in response to gravity. So it's really, really interesting to think about how are roots going to grow in a zero gravity situation. Are you going to have roots that grow the same way that the shoots grow? Are they just going to end up as a tangled bunch in a ball? Or are they going to go in all directions? Really interesting. There's all kinds of stuff to do with gravity and things acting really weird in space. For example, how does a fire burn in space? What would the shape of a flame be if there's no gravity and things like that? But here we're just talking about plants. Okay, back to the specification. Importance of phototropism. Why do you think it's so important for plant shoots to grow towards the light? We already talked about this briefly in the outcomes section. We're talking here about light, we're talking about plants, so of course we're talking about photosynthesis. So even though importance of phototropism can come up in the B5 section of an exam or a B5 topic test, it's really a B4 question, a photosynthesis question. Now, you've probably heard me say this 100 times before, at least. The beautiful thing about the biology specification for AQA is that everything ties together. The bad thing about the biology specification for AQA is everything ties together. So to get good marks on the B5 section, you really need to know stuff from the B4 section and vice versa. So have a think. If this was a 4-mark question, a 3-mark question, a 5-mark question, what would you be able to talk about in terms of photosynthesis? Have a go, pause the recording if you need to, and just have a think. Why do plants need light? Why would they want to grow towards light? And I've gotten you started just by thinking about the word photosynthesis. Try and add quite a bit more detail in your answer. More positive reinforcement coming. There you go. Okay, let's go through step by step. There's quite a lot you could say here. Plants need light for photosynthesis, we know that. The more light absorbed by the chlorophyll in the chloroplasts, the higher the rate of photosynthesis. The higher the rate of photosynthesis, the more glucose you're going to get. And that glucose is used for a whole bunch of things. If you remember back for B4, there was a worksheet where you had to do the uses of glucose, all kinds of things, releasing energy through respiration, either aerobic or anaerobic. That energy is going to be used for things like building larger molecules, for active transport to get things into cells against a concentration gradient, making other molecules like cellulose. Cellulose is for building cell walls. You're also going to build lipids. You're also going to build starch for storage, all kinds of things. And then last but not least, combining with nitrate ions that you're getting from the soil through that active transport, using the energy from respiration to make amino acids. And those amino acids are then joined up into a chain which folds up to make the proteins that the plant needs for growth. So at first glance, a simple question, why is it so important for plant shoots to grow towards light? There's actually a huge amount of information and detail that you can add in. And the level of detail and sort of number of things to add in would obviously have to do with the number of marks. But if it's a 4-mark question, a 5-mark question, and you said just because they need photosynthesis, you'd get 0 marks. You need to put in a lot more detail than that. Okay, let's have a look at the outcomes and see how we did. Recall what a tropism is and give some examples. The two examples that we have to know are phototropism and geotropism. Describe where auxins are produced in the shoot tip and the root tip and their movement in shoots and roots. So they move away from light, they move with gravity. Explain how auxins are involved in phototropism and geotropism. In phototropism, the auxins move away from light, which causes the shaded side of the plant to elongate faster, which then curves the plant and grows towards the light. For geotropism, the auxins inhibit cell elongation in the root, so you end up having the side that's on the top elongate faster, which then makes the roots grow down. Explain how phototropism benefits the plant. As we just went through, there's all kinds of detail that you can go into in terms of photosynthesis. Thank you very much. 2 more lessons on plant hormones. After the second lesson, I will give you some past paper questions. Have a lovely day, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.